Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Rowan Stringer's death was preventable. That is what has brought us here today to the third reading of Bill 149, Rowan's Law, an act to establish a committee to make recommendations made into the inquest into the death of Rowan Stringer. Rowan's Law speaks to the first of 49 recommendations made at the inquest and the need to govern both school and non-school based youth sport in relation to the prevention and treatment of concussions. The following 48 recommendations set out challenges to ministries, school boards, sports organizations, public health officials, health research and reporting organizations, insurers, coaches, and parents. The message is clear from those recommendations. We have a responsibility to respond to the need to protect our youth from concussions through protocols, prevention, and education. The journey that is Rowan's Law has brought us all together. Joining us today in the gallery are Gordon and Kathleen Stringer, and as you've heard, many representatives of Rowan's team, both in Ottawa and here in Toronto and across the province. And for every person that is here to celebrate with us today, there are many more back home in their offices, their classroom, on playing fields, waiting to celebrate this passage of the bill as well. The sense of community around Rowan's Law is really quite impressive. I want to thank my colleague, the MPP from Nepean Carleton, Lisa MacLeod, for inviting me, and the member from Kitchener-Waterloo, Catherine Fife, to co-sponsor this bill with her. We are at our best in this legislature when we come to get together and give expression to what matters most to people, the people we represent. In this case, it's the health and safety of our children. The spirit of collaboration and teamwork was reflected in the amendments to this bill, expanding the committee to include the Ministry of Training Colleges and University, including a review of legislation, regulations, and policies and best practices from other jurisdictions, broadens the scope of the bill. And these are both great additions that we all work together to include. And it's actually quite remarkable that I think from introduction to passage we're less than 6 months, and I know that the member from Oxford had a bill that he worked for 5 years on that he should be congratulated for as well. I'm most grateful to the member from Nepean Carleton for introducing me to Rowan's parents, Gordon and Kathleen Stringer. They are incredible people, parents, and advocates. Their determination to see some good come out of their personal tragedy is commendable. Although I have never met Rowan, from what I have come to know about her, I can confidently say what my father often said, and that is that the apple does not fall far from the tree. The Stringers have experienced what all parents fear the most: harm or tragedy to our daughters or sons, the death of a child. I will never forget listening to Kathleen recount their story for a group of people at Nepean High School this winter. The 4 days Rowan was at CHEO, where the staff did everything they could for her, how they honored Rowan's wishes and had her organs donated to the Trillium Gift of Life. The call they received on the Monday when they learned that her organs had given 8 people a precious new lease on life. How unexpectedly the phone kept ringing that day with media calls, something they were not expecting or prepared for. In minutes, they made a decision to make a difference, to forge ahead and tell their story, to try and have some good come from their family's tragedy. I was struck and continue to be moved by the courage of this decision. There are parents here today, and maybe some watching and some listening. I want you to imagine where the Stringers are at. Your worst fear happens. It's draining, emotional, and a surreal experience. Your life has changed forever. You are at your most vulnerable. You've only begun to grieve. Your wound is still open. There is a strong instinct to turn inward and protect yourself and your family. You make a decision with no roadmap, no clear path forward. You run the risk of reliving your experience over and over again. You make yourself incredibly vulnerable. It was a very, very courageous decision that has brought us to this point. I'm reading a book called Daring Greatly by Brené Brown, and some of you may have heard her. She's got some TED Talks out there. She's really quite accomplished. And I'd like to read this passage from the book, and it's actually taken from Teddy Roosevelt's Citizenship in the Republic speech. And I think it is both appropriate for Rowan and her family, and I'd like to take a little bit of literary license with it. I think you'll be able to pick it out. It is not the critic who counts, not the woman who points out how the strong woman stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends herself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if she fails, at least fails while daring greatly. Gordon and Kathleen, you have dared greatly, and you've done your daughter proud, and a great thing for young athletes. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, there's a certain irony about today. It was something that Gordon Stringer said to me about today, about the passage of this bill at the naming of Rowan's pitch last Saturday. Today is the end of the beginning. The journey that is Rowan Law, the journey that is Rowan's Law will continue. I am confident that we'll end with Ontario being a leader in the prevention and treatments of concussions in youth in North America, and it will inspire other jurisdictions to follow. Once again, I'd like to thank the member from Nippy and Carleton for bringing this forward, to both the member from Kitchener-Waterloo and myself, and for all her efforts in her community representing constituents. Thanks to all those who supported Rowan's Law, all those who are today, individuals, families, sports organizations, healthcare professionals, teachers and coaches, athletes, our colleagues, the Premier, the ministers, and in particular Minister Coteau and his staff and their staff. Your collective efforts are even more important going forward. Finally, to the Stringers, you have dared greatly, and that has made all the difference. Thank you.